it's good also, as much as I loved it, if you can tell, I put on everything African I could find from my trip to Nairobi, Kenya on business, and then 4 days on Savannah. I will never be the same again, I hope. I will never be the same again, I hope. I am that obnoxious neighbor who went on vacation and came back with, well, okay, so people of a certain age won't even know what this is, a carousel full of slides. And over some baked chicken, they make you watch 400 slides. That's me this morning. Hi, Karen Regal. I just landed Thursday, so it's not, I'm still on vacation. Part of me is still there. But it's wonderful to be back home with my husband and my friends, and wonderful to be back with you. I want to say something in particular. By the way, Ellen, that was beautiful, your words about this place and the offering. And I want to do the other piece briefly. And that's for some of you, the treehouse is not a sweet place. It's a place that reminds you of a lot of things that went not so nice. It's a place where you had to go to when your temple was destroyed in 3 days. And I want to hold you. And I want to tell you it's going to be all right. And I also want to acknowledge that you get to have those feelings. They cannot stop us from becoming who we need to be, but you get to have those feelings. And the treehouse has worked. It could have worked a little better, but it has worked. Theology of place is what brought me to this, because this was supposed to be y'all's last Sunday. But how many of y'all have ever had renovations done at home or present? How many of those renovations or remodels ever came in on time? I see one hand. Oh, you are a saint. Or you did it yourself. It doesn't happen that way. In theology of place, it's not a new theology. It's a very old one, actually. It's about the place influencing how you have a relationship with the divine or with your community, the very place. And I came from the epitome of that in the Masai Mara. And I'll say more about that later. But this theology of place was so ingrained in the minds of the ancient people. And notice I didn't say primitive, I said ancient. Because they did a lot of things that we seem to keep doing, or sometimes they did it better. But they had the notion that if we steal your God, the statue of your God, after we conquer you and take him into our land, guess what? You're rendered defeated, because I took your God, stole it from the land it sat on and brought it to mine. Now what you gonna do? That's the theology of place. Promised lands. In the American context, that got kind of nasty. Because who's the land promised to, for what, by whom? I'm not going into the Israel-Palestine thing, but that's worth 2 or 3 more of the sermons about promised lands. There's this dilemma about promised lands, is that there's somehow whoever promised it to you doesn't get rid of the folks who are on it. But that's another sermon. Turning to a land where revelations happened daily, during the day, to pray or to honor where that happened. A theology of place so strong that when I pray, I must turn to San Francisco. You pray where you're free, I'll pray where I'm free. Where will you face when you remember the places that this community touched your heart and set you free? Which direction will you face? And the theology of place is sometimes not consistent with my existentialist theology and reality and philosophy. I hung out with them a long time before I became UU. And, they said that it's about this present moment of which we live. That what is sacred for me and Leroy is that we are here right now. And theology of place sometimes challenges that and conflicts with that because the place might not be where you are now, and so you're drawn to what you want. Or heaven forbid, or maybe in some ways healing where you came from. There's something that happened to me as an African American when I landed in Africa. And I wasn't even on the right coast, because I know genetically I'm West African, but I was in East Africa, and it'll do. See, we're alive in this present moment, right now, not when we get to the promised land, but now. And so I'm preaching about something that's in contradiction to what might make some of us be more at peace. And I'm okay with that because we're UU and we like contradiction. Our songwriter this morning, the one that we didn't sing, anyway, Mr. Sondheim, wrote of a place that was not in existence. In the spin on Romeo and Juliet called West Side Story, he has the lovers imagine a place that would have been a stretch, or that was not a stretch, for a gay man who was in his prime in the 50s and early 60s. Somewhere a place for us, when the very act of being in love was illegal. We're still building places in open air, peace and quiet, places for us somewhere. Here's something else. No matter who you must love, and notice I didn't say choose to love, I said must. Because if you really love them, especially after that 4th month, you must love them. It's like dessert being served first. And thank God it happens that way, or none of us would exist. But anyway, and then dinner, where we are loved back. And does it have to be imaginary? I hope not. See, we are a community, and if that new building burns down, breathe, and the treehouse closes. If y'all have to meet in my backyard, you're still Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Atlanta. In this moment, not after a while, not when, but right now. And we get to, not must, but choose what kind of loving community we're going to be right now, and then where are we going to take that community's soul? And y'all don't stick it in the new building. Huh? Can I hear an amen, please? The soul of this community goes all over, not just in the new pretty building, and it better be pretty. And what gives me the right to be so pompous about this, because I have stood in a Maasai village, an honorary elder, by the way, with fresh cow dung on my shoes, and loved and appreciated by people collectively who do not own as much as you have in that kitchen. I have been to the land that tells the Maasai people who they are from the horizon to the horizon. It's almost like Western Kansas. Not because they own the land, like our cultural capitalism says, but because the Maasai are connected to the land and their cattle and the creatures of the Mara, the plains surrounding them, even the predators. Even the predators. In our theology of place, can you say that you are connected to the soul healing land and that life that surrounds us? Is there a place for us that we must claim that welcomes the stranger who has come from miles away, tired, anxious, curious, in need of joy and the shyness of the Maasai children singing my name? And I have a video to prove it. Please excuse me. I'm not the only member of the UUCA who has gone on safari and had to learn these lessons about being in the motherland of humanity. The motherland of humanity, not just those who are descended from slavery. We, as creatures on this earth, got up and walked out of a savannah not far from where I was. So all y'all from Africa. And see the creatures we were told must be jailed in zoos to witness. And they don't. They do not. I was in the truck, and I promise you I stayed in the truck this time. And she was right there, the lioness who had missed a kill. And the traffic jam on the way to the resort from the airstrip out in the middle of nowhere was a herd of elephants. And I am the one who returned less than a week ago, transformed by the plains of the Masai Mara. And from the air, or from one of the high ridges bordering those spots, you see where the forest becomes circles, and Mara means spotted land. And it's curious for me how ancient people who herded cattle could get to an elevation where they could see that it looks like a spotted carpet, which is visible from the air. But they were primitive. I also want to say that the Maasai people of this beautiful land are alive and well. They are not extinct or museum displays. And our so-called civilization is encroaching. And the youth are not necessarily wanting to stay on the Mara after they're educated and come back to the rural life. I also want to say out loud that Unitarian Universalism is alive and well. Or at least I hope. And I hope we're all committed to sharing our faith with the same romance and the love for who we are that the Maasai shared with me. I learned so much about a place where the hippos sang me to sleep and woke me up sliding into the river snorting. They sound like a bunch of trombones tuning up. until they get upset. And there ain't no trombones there. I also had the privilege of being in Nairobi, and I met at my business meeting people working to still fight the stigma of HIV and AIDS, the one part of the epidemic that is not over. A world literally away, in a center named for Archbishop Desmond Tutu, and my story was validated by African people from all over the continent. And I was the only Black gay man in the room, and my story was validated. Even though we must leave the treehouse, not today, but soon. I'm so glad to see those boxes. Can I get an amen for the boxes? Because our time here is coming to an end, and we have to, because of our wealth and privilege, welcome the stories of those who come to us in need of our liberation and healing, and they came to us while we were at the treehouse. They don't know about the old temple. And that's what we will consecrate our land, our buildings, and maybe some divine being will be present, but if, and that's important for some of us. But if the divine beings get the wrong address, we're still gonna be all right, and we're still going to bless the stranger, and we're going to bring them to see what we love. My vacation wasn't perfect, by the way. I had cultural hiccups. I'm not a haggler, and they haggle. Don't ever wear your priest collar to a market. I'm a clearance rack expert, and that isn't how they do it in East Africa and the Kenyan culture. Wow, did I learn some expensive lessons. And the stress that had me needing this vacation had to be unpacked so that I could be there. I'm begging you to also unpack the stress from wherever it comes. Even here in this nice place that has held us while we were redecorating the new temple. You get to decide what harm, what COVID-19 traumas, what collective hurt we pack up and take with us, and it must be unpacked. It ain't written here, but I'm over liberals hauling stuff around that they don't need anymore. Because you see, it will sneak into the boxes like lions in the tall golden grass. And you cannot see a pride of 20-some lions in tall grass, and I know it for a fact. Because they'll come out roaring when it's time. Somewhere, a place for our individual and collective recognized healing, like the vast plains of the Masai Mara, filled with diverse, interconnected life. What does that sound like? Beautiful, dangerous, and sacred, just like us. May our time here in this place be blessed, and may our ability to change lives and outcomes of lives make us ever grateful and ever vigilant to be better. Be as proud as the Maasai on their 5,000-foot plateau with all the grand and amazing creatures of East Africa. The great tusk and those humble and diverse with simple and profound ways of existing. Asante. Thank you.